Okay, welcome. I'm going for a ride around Central Park. I'm going to do the Central Park bike loop. I'm leaving my home here on the Upper East Side of Manhattan right now. I am headed. Um, I'm headed eastbound on East 70th Street. I'm about to cross 2nd Avenue. I'm going to go over to 1st Avenue, loop around to 71st Street, and head west to Central Park on 71st Street, make a brief little jog onto 72nd Street to go into the 72nd Street entrance to the park. We'll see that when we get there. So again, like I said, we're going eastbound on 70th Street. There's a nice bike lane on this street, which consists of pretty much just a strip of paint on the pavement, which I guess is better than nothing. I guess the main purpose that it serves is to tell cyclists what street to use. Doesn't really do much of anything to separate the car traffic from the bike traffic. However, here we go. I'm gonna turn on to First Avenue here, and First Avenue, much like Second Avenue, First Avenue has a really nice separated bike lane that keeps the bikes and the pedestrians all separate from each other. So you can see this is like what's called a protected bike lane. The parked cars separate the bicycles from the traffic, which is just really nice. But we're gonna get right off of First Avenue. We're gonna make a left turn here onto East 71st Street to go westbound. 71st is much like 70th. It has just a painted bike lane, totally not protected at all. And like I said, it really just, the main purpose it serves is to tell cyclists that this is the street you should be using. But that's really all there is. All there is to that. It is really a beautiful morning here in New York. Great morning for a bike ride. About to cross 2nd Avenue here, going west. Gonna hit a lot of lights going cross town here, unfortunately, but that's what's nice about the Central Park bike loop. Once you get to it, is you pretty much can just loop around the park, and it's a 6.1 mile. I'm sorry, no, it's about a 6.2 mile bike loop. And then that pretty much goes around the whole of Central Park, and it always goes counterclockwise, and we'll see that when I get there. And we're continuing going westbound on 71st Street, passing Marymount Manhattan College's few buildings on the right. If you ever watched the show Madam Secretary, they shoot that in the street here a lot. So I have seen Tim Daly walking around with coffee, drinking coffee on the street here as they film the show Madam Secretary in those set of buildings that we just passed on the right. They also did a scene a few years ago for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on that street as well. Here we go, about to cross 3rd Avenue, and again, like I said, a lot of lights here. Not too much traffic. It's about 9 a.m. Saturday morning, so the traffic is fairly moderate. Here we go, approaching Lexington Avenue here. A few cyclists out today. The park will be crowded when we get there, because it's a nice day, so the park's going to be crowded. One downside of of the bike loop on Central Park is the nicer the day, the more you want to cycle, the more everyone else wants to cycle. If you go on a freezing cold day in late November, you will have it much to yourself, but on a day like today, it'll be pretty crowded. Approaching Park Avenue, I'm going to be turning right here, and then turning left on 72nd Street and going straight into the park from there. You could just keep going straight here until you get to Fifth Avenue and then go one block the wrong way on Fifth Avenue, but I try to avoid doing that's called salmoning, and I try to avoid doing that because you're not supposed to do that. So here we go. I'm going to stop here at this light, but then I'm going to make this quick left turn onto 72nd Street, and then 72nd Street goes straight into the park. And then we can pick up the bike loop right there. And here we go. And that is Central Park directly ahead of us. Almost there. I did, as I surmised, the lights going across town very often do not fall your way. And looks like I can cross. Some pretty pricey real estate, fancy buildings right over here, right next to the park, as you can imagine. And one last traffic light to get through, crossing Fifth Avenue to get into the park itself. And here we go. So now we're in the park. You have this little entryway street on 72nd, so we're not actually in the bike loop yet. When we make the right turn right here, at that point, as soon as we make the right turn, we'll be in the bike loop proper. So we're entering the bike loop at sort of the south east corner of the bike loop. So here we are now. At this point, we've just entered the actual loop itself, and one of the things that happens here when you enter the loop at this point is you almost immediately go into what is called the East Side Hill. Some people call it the Cat Hill because there's a statue of a cat on the left-hand side at the top of the hill. But there are people that say that they think that this is the hardest hill in the park. I personally don't see it. The first of the three big hills on the west side, I think, is much harder to bike up, and we'll see that when we get to it shortly. But this is the East Side Hill, or what's sometimes called the Cat Hill. on the east side. It's pretty much the only hill of consequence on the east side of the park. The west side is a whole different story. The west side has three big hills, and the west side is pretty much all hills. And we'll talk about those hills more when we get to them. But yeah, this is the east side hill. I know a lot of runners feel that this is a harder hill than the west side. I just don't get it. I just think the ones on the west side are so much worse. But what are you going to do? That is the statue of the cat right there on the left. And we're pretty much at the crest of the hill here, so the worst of it is over and done with. So that wasn't too bad. I don't even downshift for that hill, so it can't possibly be that bad if I don't have to downshift. I do downshift for the hills on the west side. Metropolitan Museum of Art, coming up here on the right. On the left is Cleopatra's Needle, which is an obelisk that was brought over from Egypt and installed in Central Park. It was one of a set of three. There's one in London, one in Paris, and this one in New York. It's been there for about 150, 160 years in that spot. And the Museum of Art is still on the right. It's 4 blocks long, running from 80th to 84th Street. So it's a very, very big museum. Statue of Alexander Hamilton on the left. So, if you think of the ride through Central Park in sort of 4 sections, north, south, east, and west, the east section is sort of the second longest. The west section is really the longest, so you're really going down the west side quite a bit. There really isn't a southern component to it for the most part, because what happens is as you come down the west side, you pretty much make almost a hairpin turn, and then you're heading right back up east again. So you're only on the south side heading east for a few seconds really before you're heading back up north again. So there really isn't much of anything to sort of a southern segment. There's a northern segment where the northern segment's pretty much the only really, really big downhill piece. That's a big coasting downhill section. We'll get to that shortly. But we're coming up sort of to the north east corner of the park. We still got a ways to go on this sort of east side section of the park. So it's really the west side's the longest part, the east side's the second longest part. The northern section is much smaller than either the west or the east side, and the southern section basically almost doesn't exist. It's really just one big hairpin turn, and you're headed back up north again. This is actually a very pleasant section of the park. It's hard to say which section is my favorites. This is called the Engineers Gate, the gate we just are passing right over here on the right. This is at 90th Street. It's under construction a little bit, but it's the other major entrance on the east side besides the one we entered in at 72nd Street. This is Temple Emmanuel on the right. I have heard people say that it is the largest synagogue in the world. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard people say that. But I really like this section of the park, this sort of northeast corner of the bike loop. It's actually pretty nice. It's got a lot going for it. It's nice. There's a lot of trees. It's nice. It's quiet. There's not a lot just going on in the immediate environs over here. It's not hilly. It's relatively level, etc. So all pretty nice. Here we got some, looks like a running club, all identically fitted out there. Sometimes you see cycling clubs, everyone all biking in the exact same cycling kit. That actually looks pretty cool as well when you see that. In general, at least today, the runners seem to be staying on the running path, which is to the left, and the cyclists are staying on their place, which is to the right, as it's supposed to be. Sometimes you have people who sort of deviate. Sometimes you see people go in the wrong direction, but that's actually pretty rare, seeing people go the wrong direction. We may see one or two today, but in general, you're really only supposed to cycle and run, really, for that matter, counterclockwise. It's a lot more forgiving if you're running the wrong direction than cycling the wrong direction. The runners don't seem to care about people going the wrong way nearly as much. So we're still going up the east side, but we are about to make a very big turn to the left. That will start to take us west along the northern edge of the park. And as we make this big turn to the northern edge of the park, we enter a big downhill piece, the biggest, by far the biggest downhill section of the park. If you're looking to get speed, this is where you'll get it. I usually don't particularly care how fast I'm going. Just going around in a loop to get some exercise and enjoy the nice day out. I'm not in a race. Swimming pool, public pool on the right here. It is closed at the moment. They're sort of doing a big renovation job on it. They're completely reconstructing it. But on nice summer days, it gets there's a lot of people swimming there. They do ice skating in the winter there as well. So this is you can really kind of enjoy this really nice downhill section. We're approaching the northwest corner of the park, and as we loop around the swimming pool here and everything in the northwest corner, as we start to head south, we go right into the three big hills as we come around the pond here. So it's at this point that I will downshift because I know there's the first of the three big hills coming up, and the nice thing about the three hills, at least the one redeeming factor, is that they get progressively easier. So the first of the three hills, which we're going to climb right now, is by far the worst of the three. The three hills on the west side of Central Park are very commonly referred to as the Three Sisters. And I have seen on some online discussion forums that they actually have names, individual names, and they are in order: Helga, Zelda, and Esmeralda. That's at least what I've been told. But this would be Helga then, I guess, the first one of the three. And it is by far the steepest and the longest and all that. Now, what makes it particularly bad for somebody who hasn't done it a lot, and I've done this hill many times, so this aspect of it's not a problem for me because I know exactly when it begins and when it ends, etc. But because it is so windy, and heavily treed, you don't know when you're at the top. Like, for example, right now, if you didn't know any better, you might think you're about to crest the top of the hill here because you're coming around this curve. It kind of looks like maybe it's the top of the hill. Nope. You got quite a bit to go here. So that's the really deceiving part, because it's really constantly winding one way or the other. You really can't see where the crest is until you're pretty much on top of the crest. So that's the equally frustrating part about this nasty hill. The way you do know when you're kind of at the top is there's a set of 2 traffic lights very close to the top. There's one right before the crest, and then there's another one sort of right just like a few feet after the crest. So basically, when you pass the 2 traffic lights, you will have climbed the first of the 3 sisters. So that traffic light right up there is the first of the 2. So what'll happen is, again, still not at the top of the hill, believe it or not. You might think you are, but you're not. So there's another traffic light that we're gonna see as the road curves around to the right, but you can't see it yet. That traffic light, when you see that, when you pass that light, you will have crested the hill. And again, you still can't see it, so that's the part that's frustrating. And there it is. So that traffic light would be the crest of the hill. So when you pass that, you can safely say that the hill has been conquered, so to speak. And now you can enjoy a little bit of downhill, and then there's 2 more decent-sized hills on the west side, but the one we just did was by far the worst of the 3. The whole west side is basically just a set of hills, one after the other, after the other, after the other. So yep, this is not nearly as steep a downhill as the one right before that last hill, but this is certainly a nice little break from the hill we just climbed. So in terms of the gearing on my bicycle, I have 3 chain rings in the front and 8 gears in the back, and I way underutilize the gears on my bike. So this entire ride I'll be in 4th gear, so 4 out of the 8 gears the whole ride, and I'll be in the 3rd chain ring for most of the ride. Right now I downshifted into the 2nd chain ring to do the hills on the west side, and when we're kind of done with the west side hills, I'll shift back up to the 3rd chain ring. So I'll basically be in 3rd chain ring, 4th gear for the majority of the ride. When I first started doing this circuit, I had to go down into 1st gear into the 1st chain ring to be able to climb the hills. When I wasn't in quite as good a shape as I am now, when my fitness level improved a bit, I was able to only have to downshift to 2nd gear, 2nd chain ring, I should say. And I regarded that as a big accomplishment, the fact that I didn't have to go into the 1st chain ring in order to do the hills on the west side. I have done it the whole ride with in the 3rd chain ring. I have not tried it lately. I should probably do it. It's probably not as bad as I'm imagining it. But we're coming to the 2nd of the 3 hills here. The west side part of the loop, like I said, is by far the longest. So you're really spending the biggest part of your time doing the west side of Manhattan by far on this whole ride. So the west side just seems to go on and on and on. When you start to see all the big high-rises on Central Park South straight ahead of you, you know the west side's sort of coming to an end, but it takes quite a while to get there. You see them, but you just keep getting closer and closer and closer, but seems like a while before you get there. In terms of time, it takes me roughly 30 minutes to do the full loop. My personal best time for doing the loop is just about 26 minutes. I don't really, like I said, I'm not really going for speed. I never really even try to do like a personal record or anything like that. I just take it as it comes, and if it feels right, then that's what I do. Again, just a really beautiful day. All the trees are in bloom here. You got some really nice architecture. Some of these big old buildings here. The one on the right is either the Beresford or the El Dorado. I always get them mixed up. I forget which one this one is. So then we got a little bit of a downhill section. Like I said, you're going up and down hills, pretty much the entirety of the west side. I shouldn't say pretty much the entire west side. For sure, the entirety of the west side is just basically just one hill after the other. And you can see the way off in the distance, you got some very tall buildings. Those are on Central Park South. So you still got quite a ways to go on the west side here. So like I said, it definitely is very heavily weighted towards the west side. This loop. And as you can see, they're getting closer. Those buildings on Central Park South, straight ahead, but we're not quite there yet. You got the nice downhill section here again, a nice little break from lugging yourself up the hill, but there'll be another hill coming up shortly. I'm always impressed with the folks who do this on the city bikes, because I don't know if you've ever ridden one of those, but they are very, very, very heavy. There's only 3 gears. They're very clunky, very, very heavy. I think they're quite hard to ride myself. They're really meant for transportation and not recreation. Again, getting a bit closer to the southern end of the park. Again, all those big buildings straight ahead, those are all along Central Park South, so you get an indication of where we are. So as we come towards the southern edge of the park, we're going to be coming up to the southwest corner of the park. That's basically where Columbus Circle is, and the Time Warner Center, CNN studios are all over there, that area. This is Tavern on the Green. It's a big restaurant. It's also the finish line for the New York Marathon. So the New York Marathon starts in Staten Island and ends in Central Park. The Five-Borough bike tour goes through Central Park, but it doesn't begin or end there. So the Five-Borough bike tour starts in Lower Manhattan by the World Trade Center, goes up Manhattan, up into the bottom of Central Park, out the top of Central Park, so you basically do the whole length of the park, then up into the Bronx, down, back out of the Bronx, back into Manhattan, down the east side of Manhattan, over the 59th Street Bridge into Queens, does a kind of a loop in Queens, down into Brooklyn, all through Brooklyn, Bequia, Gowanus Parkway, over the Verrazano Bridge, into Staten Island, and ends on the Staten Island side of the Verrazano Bridge. So it's kind of like a longer version of the New York City Marathon. It's about 40 miles as opposed to the marathon, which is, as we know, 26.2, and kind of in reverse, sort of, but not quite. In that it ends where the marathon begins on the Staten Island side of the Verrazano Bridge, but it's not quite exactly the same route. So here we are, finally coming to the southern piece of the Central Park Loop. But you'll see as we pass these horse carriages, we're really just going to make this hairpin turn, sort of. We're now kind of roughly going east. That's Central Park South to our right, but we're kind of going through this hairpin turn. We're going to be immediately turning to the left, and we're going to be heading straight up north again. So there really is, for all intents and purposes, there really is almost basically no southern section to this loop. It's just basically just this one big turn that we're in now, and then that's really kind of it. So there you go. And now we're heading north again. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that southern piece, so to speak. It's just like I said, that big one looping turn, and that's it. So now we're heading north. So this is the southeast corner of the loop. We're going to come on very shortly, on the right. We're going to see the entrance to the 72nd Street entrance to the park, and the beginning, and where we began the loop. So I am going to be doing a couple more laps here. No sense in boring you with yet another loop, because it'll probably be just more of the same. So we're going to see the entrance on 72nd Street shortly. It'll be on the right. hope you have enjoyed this little jaunt around Central Park. I know I certainly did. So coming up here on the right would be our 72nd Street entrance. Just at the next traffic light. So like I said, I am certainly not going to bore you with another loop from me. So I will bid you a fond farewell at this point. Bye-bye.